Hello and welcome to Ed's Insight. I'm your host, Eddie Vogel. So glad you have joined me today on this episode. Um, this is our, believe it or not, 10th week of doing Ed's Insight already. Yeah, we've been doing this for 10 weeks now, and I hope that it's just been lifting you up and just encouraging you as you've just been listening to these words of encouragement as we go throughout each week, just bringing a biblical perspective on things going on in our world and being able to give a biblical perspective, like I said, and bringing hope and encouragement in a crazy world. In this episode today, we're going to spend some time um, on a few different things, but we're going to spend most of our time on this week's message, which we'll be doing here in a little bit and a little further on in the episode. But I'm going to start off with this. Last night, as many of you probably heard, there was a shooting at a festival out in California, and so far 3 lives have been lost, and over a dozen or so people are injured or victims, and so we just need to spend time, just praying for those people and just those that were involved in that situation, that that they would be able to feel comfort and peace, and that the families who lost loved ones, that they would just feel the comfort of God all around them. And we live in a world today where gun violence is a big thing in our country, and it's if it's not every week, it's every couple months we're hearing of another shooting. uh, Chicago always has shootings, it seems like. So it's always one of those um, crazy situations, I think, that never ends. It's just shootings over and over and over. And we see not just here in America, but around the world as well. And there's, people are trying to figure out, well, how do we prevent these? How do we stop these mass shootings and these killings and stuff like that? You see it in the political environment as well, where they're just arguing with each other. Republicans, Democrats are just arguing about how can we stop gun violence, and how can we prevent gun violence. The answer to that is this. Here's how I see it. Let me give you a little bit of my insight on this situation. If you want to stop gun violence and all these shootings, listen, you're never going to be able to stop it 100%. There's just evil people in this world that are going to do stupid things, and this is going to go on. It's been going on since the beginning of our time. The killing of other people and stuff like that. That's the type of world we live in. But the way that you prevent these and stop these shootings from happening is you have good people with guns in these environments, and law-abiding citizens, and people who are concealed carry people that are just out and about in the communities, and we're able to prevent dramatic damage from these shootings, because when there's a good person with a gun, statistics show that it's going to prevent the situation from escalating, and it'll stop the bad person with a gun and be able to stop the ability before we get to the point. A lot of times these police do not get there in time. There's I'm not saying every police will, but sometimes they're just too far away, and by the time the police get there, you've got several casualties. And but with a good person with a gun, somebody that's trained in the rightful use of a gun, trained in the right, knows the situations, when to use it, when not to use it, will step in and put their lives in front of those other people who are in harm's way, and be able to prevent the mass casualties that we see over and over. And so the thing is, it's not as the Democrats, they're trying to say, well, let's take away everybody's guns. That'll solve the problem. Okay? Well, we have laws of guns now with how to get guns and stuff like that, how is that going to prevent? And there are laws. We have things. So just putting more laws and more restrictions on people and taking guns away from good citizens that are able to know the right and wrong, gun use and everything, that's not going to solve anything. That's why we have the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, which our founding fathers put in our Constitution that formed our country to be able to have citizens be able to defend themselves. And if you think about it, people, our country was founded and started because we were able to defend ourselves with guns from the British and be able to gain our independence. So it's just, and we use them for hunting, and we use them for so many good things that it's just not the right thing to do to take them away and make more regulations. And yeah, you got those whatever, but that's just my opinion on that. I'll leave it at that. Not get much deeper into that because it's just a crazy topic, and we could be here all day talking about the Second Amendment and guns and rights and all that stuff, and that's not what I want to get into, And so anyway, I don't know if you guys did see that the president was able to get the Supreme Court approved him to be able to get funds for the wall at the southern border, to be able to fund our wall completely and build our wall, get it up, and keep illegal immigrants out. Folks, listen, to keep illegal immigrants out. It doesn't say to keep immigrants out, because people can come to our country. That's not the problem. The problem is when we have people coming into our country, overwhelming our southern border or Canadian border, and we're not able to help these people because they come in, they sneak in, then they go off and they hide wherever, and then they get free everything here in our country, and we basically give them handouts for everything, and we're not able to, they don't come, and they don't try to come legally and go through the process of becoming an American citizen. And that's all we asked. We just asked that they come in and follow our laws, come in the right way, and if they really want to be here, okay, great. But a lot of these people, they're bringing in drugs, they're bringing in crime, they're bringing in rapists, they're bringing in just these horrible criminals, and we're just letting them flood in through our borders and our, and it's, a lot of people don't give credit to the men and women that are trying to make the best to prevent this from happening, and they're doing their job. That's why I support ICE. I'll always support ICE. A lot of people want to cut ICE out of the whatever, but you do that, then we might as well just let anybody come into our country and let it run its course. But that's not America. America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. But free does not mean you can just come in and do anything you want and gain rights and not go through and be better than legal citizens. So it's just a mess at the southern border, and I'm glad that we're going to get that wall growing. And a lot of people will say, well, Trump said Mexico was going to pay for it. Well, in a way, Mexico will pay for the wall, and in the way of when we get our wall up, Mexico will have to deal with the criminals and gangs and all that trash of illegal immigrants coming up that way, So that's how Mexico's going to pay for it. But anyway, all right, so and then we saw today that President Trump signed the bill into law giving our 9/11 men and women, first responders, able to get funds to help with medical bills and help with things in years to come, and that will never be taken away from them. And we remember 9/11, and we know how bad it was and how much it was a crazy time. And these first responders just ran into the buildings, the Twin Towers, and just ran to help people. And putting their own lives on the line. And for too many years, it took so many years for us to be able to provide the full funding to help these men and women of our first responders. And I'm glad that, President Trump signed that today, and I'm glad that it was a bipartisan thing. Yeah, we had rocky roads to get here, but we're here, we got it. The president signed it, and our first responders will be able to live life knowing that they're going to be covered for anything that comes up medically and other things as well. So that's great. Let's see what else is going on in this political environment. Let's see here. What have I got down? There's so many things going on in our world right now today. Okay, that's all we're going to do for politics today. Now I want to talk about just a couple things sports-wise, because you guys know that we do sports-wise. And here's my insight on sports going on in the world this week. NFL football, training camps have started for the NFL. That's great. That's wonderful. So we are just 2 days away from the Hall of Fame football game. On NBC, it'll be the Denver Broncos and the Atlanta Falcons playing for, that's just the game that kicks off the season in a way. And then we have, preseason and stuff like that. And then college ball will get going. College football will be going on. And baseball starting to come down to the last month or so. And so they're going to be, fighting to get to that World Series, and it'll be cool to see what's going on. And then hockey starts right back up, and then basketball starts right back up pretty soon. And then we're going to be sitting in the cold December pretty soon. Before you know it, before we turn our heads, it'll be December. Time's flying by, folks, and it's just amazing how the sports cycle makes the year go by fast if you think about it. And, but anyway, so there's some good things going on in sports right now. And hopefully this NFL football season will be a good football season. And college football will be a good season. And we won't have any of these national anthem protesters disrespecting our flag, which I bet you're going to have a handful of players wanting to disrespect our country. And you know what? If they want to disrespect our country, let's not give them camera time. That's the problem. We're putting them on the camera. The media puts it right on them during the national anthem. If we didn't televise them and show them, it wouldn't be the blown out to what it would be not shoved in our face all the time. Or if you want to disrespect the flag, stay in the locker room. But the whole team shouldn't have to stay in the locker room just because of a couple players. If the player wants to disrespect our flag, then he can stay in the locker room till after the national anthem. You're paid to play football and to entertain us. You're not paid to throw your political ideas out, throw your agenda out. And because when you go to a job, if you think about it, when you go to the job has rules, the job has policies, the job has things you have to follow for that job. And a lot of times those jobs talk about not bringing your religious views in, not bringing your political views in, but doing what the company you're representing the company. You're not representing yourself. You're not representing your brand. You're representing that company. So when you come to America, when you come to play football, you're representing your team. You're representing your town. You're representing your country. You are not representing yourself. So for a minute and a half each week, you can avoid disrespecting and making a public display of yourself just to get attention. You want attention? Play the game. Do good plays. Get your records in football. Then you can have your fame. But don't use your platform to entertain everybody just for your own advantage. So that's where we are, folks. It's just, that's simple, So anyway, we're going to dig into today's message of hope and some encouragement for you. And I just want to share with you guys a little bit of my some things I've dealt with throughout my life, and just I want to share with you guys a very a very dark time I had in my life years ago. As many know, I have physical disability, yes, and I've talked about that. Whatever, I'm not talking about that this episode, but I want to talk to you about. It was my see, 7th grade year of school, and I was just a young kid at the time, and had just finished 7th grade, going into 8th grade, and I started to have problems, you could say, that I noticed. I'm a very strong Christian. I'm not a religious person, but I faced a very tough spiritual battle my 8th grade year, and it just continued. Just to kind of give you guys a little bit of details of what it was. It was, I started to have these weird dreams. I started to have these weird dreams of just stories in the Bible that I had read, and just putting myself in those stories, and I found myself in the middle of those stories as those characters, and it was as though I was able to see everything going on, and there was one night I remember, it was about I would say November of that year, and I was outside just doing my thing, and out in the backyard or wherever. I don't remember exactly where it was, but I looked over in the distance, and I saw this gentleman, this man, was just out in the middle of wherever I was at, nobody else around. So when he approached me and started talking to me a little bit, and before I'd know it, he was gone. I turned around and he was gone. I didn't think much of it. Thought, okay, well, maybe he just left really quick. But a few days later, I was happened to be at church at the time, and it was during service. So it was crowded and everything, and we were having a good service. And I saw this man. He popped up again. Okay. Nobody else noticed he came in, and later on, what I would find out is that this guy that I was seeing was actually not really there. It was a hallucination of this guy that I was seeing, and he reminded me of a character out of a show. But I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, and this just kept angering me, not knowing who this person was, because he could just show up whenever, and when he would show up, it would basically be as though he would just, stand there and smile a little bit, and then go away. And then right then and there, it was as though, crazy things happened where I would get angry, I'd get upset, people around me would, maybe, drop a pencil or, do some crazy things. But it was just the timing of seeing this guy and just things just happening. It just kept progressing and progressing. And in December of my 8th grade year, January-ish of the second half of 8th grade, I became very sick, and spent 3.5 weeks in the hospital. But the whole time I was in the hospital, they found nothing wrong. and they did test after test, and they thought, well, maybe it might have been my MD, or maybe it might have been my scoliosis, maybe it might have been this, and this, but they could never find what was wrong. But during this whole time, and this is something that I've never told anybody till now, so if you hear this, know that I'm stepping out of my comfort zone here and sharing this for the very first time. That during those times in the hospital, those 3 weeks, I kept seeing this guy show up over and over and over. And, and every time I would see this guy, he would, I can't recall his name because he never told me his name. But anyway, well, I got through the hospital at that time, and then when I got out of the hospital, I went back to school, did having good things, and we went on this well, we went on this field trip to a factory, recycle factory, I believe. I don't remember the type of factory it was. Anyway, we were on our bus going to our field trip wherever, and things were going good. Everything was great, and we were walking through the factory and just doing our thing, and we came up to this one furnace where they had been burning some things, and I looked over and I looked just look at it, and in the middle of the furnace, there stood the guy that I had been seeing all this time. He was standing in the middle of the fire, just, like you always did, just standing there smiling. And on our way back from the factory, we stopped at a park to have lunch or whatever, and I just started feeling a little edgy, and I saw this guy again the whole trip, and I was on the bus. We were coming back from the field trip, and I remember that I had gotten up and went back, started hitting on a friend of mine, with a pop bottle on the bus as we're driving. Bus stops, teacher tells me to sit down. I don't sit down, and I just go crazy. I just go ape crazy, and it was just a disaster. But when I got back to the school, they found out that since I attacked a student and was doing some crazy things and being a threat or whatever, I ended up in a rehab facility, a mental institution, you could say, and I spent 3 weeks, 3 weeks there the first time. Now, this is the first time. And I did all their medicine stuff, all their trials, all their garbage, blah, blah, blah. And, but I got through the 3 weeks, and I kept telling, I finally, I did everything they asked. I said everything, and I played by their book and stuff like that. But the truth is I was still having these hallucinations, having these visions of just different things that this guy would show me and nobody else could see. Now just keep in mind that this is not a real person, it's a hallucination. But there's a point to this. I'm almost done. When I got out of the mental institution the first time, went back to school, I don't think I was in school more than a week, maybe 2 weeks at the max. I had another episode where I got very aggravated, very freaked out, and attacked another student, and attacked his teacher, and it was just a big mess. So what happened this time around, though, is I got expelled from school for the rest of my 8th grade year, ended up back in the mental institution because of not feeling right, not feeling myself, and just freaking out, and but then it was in this time to where I did their treatments again, did all their class, all their groups, all their stuff. Said I wasn't having a problem, but still was. And I just kind of went through the process, went through their cycle or whatever you call it. But I remember that this time that there was one vision that I had, and this is when things started to kind of click a little bit. I was in my little room, and we shared a room with another person, and I remember the guy that was there with me. He was in there for some other stuff that he had been going through and dealing with in life, and he was just having a hard time, and I remember that in the middle of our conversation, I don't remember what we were talking to, but like he changed. His whole perspective changed. His whole self changed in a way, and he was kind of became, like this. I wouldn't call it hallucination, but more of a vision, I would say, from God. And he was basically telling me, hey, and he could see the man that I had been seeing all this time. And he said, hey, you know who that is, right? And I was trying to figure it out. And he said, that's Satan, one of Satan's demons, or Satan. And I said, oh, okay. And basically I talked to him for probably 35 to 40 minutes. And I won't share all that was in that conversation because that's between me and God. And I won't share that because it's not important. But anyway, at the end of this, as he said, basically, the end of the conversation wrapped up with, he told me that I'm going to do great things in life, and that I'm going to, live a long life and be able to minister to many people and be an encouragement to people. And at that time, I didn't really think about that, and then in the instant, he turned back into the self of the guy that was there as my roommate. And that roommate left the next morning. I stayed there about 3 more weeks, got out, finished my 8th grade year doing homeschooling. And thankfully, a couple teachers of mine and teacher aides came in and helped me do my schoolwork and got me back on the right track. And then between 8th grade and 9th grade, I did some summer school with a lady that was really known in the small town of Cass City, who helped me. She was a former teacher of the school back in the day, and retired teacher, and she had helped other people get through school, one-on-one, and I was able to start my 9th grade year, which was great, and things were going good. I'd say probably so about 11th grade, when I was able to get through those hard times of just many weeks of counseling and many weeks of deep therapy and deep working through stuff, going to church, and it was during this time I kept building my faith and making myself stronger in my faith and being able to understand the whole concept of what I was dealing with. And then in 12th grade I had another experience that was life-changing, to where it was the 3rd day of school and of my 12th grade year, and my friend, who was 11th grade at the time, we were sitting at lunch having a conversation at the table, and all of a sudden he had a medical issue come up, and he fell over and died there on the spot. Now, I say on the spot because at that time, um, because yeah, you gotta have a doctor confirm that he was passed on, but I kind of knew right away just by how he was and how he looked that he was gone. And the cafeteria went crazy. People were flipping out. Everybody had to go back to class and blah blah blah. But anyway, I was didn't do anything else the rest of that day, and we had his funeral the following Monday, I believe. Yeah, and I was able to speak at my friend's funeral, and it was great. Just being able to know that he was in a better place, and that although yes he was gone, that he was in a better place and able to be free of the pain or what things going on in this world, and it was through that God really rocked my faith and was able to show me that sometimes it takes the midst of going through hard times, going through facing our demons, going through battling against evil a lot of times, like I had been, in order to overcome and be victorious in our faith and be able to stand on top and say, hey, I've been there, I've been through hell, and I've been back, and I know what it's like to sit through there and be able to experience the battle against God and the battle against Satan, where they're battling each other, and it's a spiritual battle. The Bible talks about our battle is not against flesh and bone, but against spiritual. And there's more than just the physical realm. There's the spiritual realm around us that we have to be aware of and know that when we are struggling, when we are going through hell, basically, and life is not working out, and life is just, we just want to give up and we just want to quit. We need to understand that that's not what we need to do. We need to keep fighting. We need to keep the faith. We need to look to God. We need to read our Bible. And once we do this, we'll be able to see that we can overcome the demons in our life and we can come out on top. Look where I was in that dark place to where I am now, ministering to people and being encouragement and letting my circumstance not define me, not make me miserable, not make me angry, not make me, depressed, but know that I'm blessed and I'm able to be there and encourage people and help people. And I don't take any credit for it. I give all my credit to God Almighty for getting me through the situations I went through and getting me through coming out on top and being victorious. That's what it's about, folks. It's about that. It's about not letting our situations dictate who we are, who God says we are. We are children of Him, and we are made in His image, and we are made to overcome the darkness. But we can't do that on our own. We can't do that outside of Christ. We have to come into Christ to be able to be lifted up and be encouraged and know that He can be our strength in the midst of our weakness, and know that we don't have to be perfect, that days are going to come where we're going to have it rough, where we're going to have trouble getting through situations, where we're going to have those dark times, but we can overcome those and be victorious. Like I said, I can't stress that enough. And that's when we are able to tell our story and tell where we've been. And I could sit here and tell you story after story of people who overcame their hell and are now standing in the light and worshiping God and praising God for where they were and where He brought them out of. And I can just tell story after story about that. And they're not just stories, they're testimonies. They're living testimonies of people's lives, of Christ taking them, reshaping them, and bringing them out of their bondage and out of the sin that they're caught in. And know this, you may be in that situation right now where you're stuck, where you're having a hard time understanding life, and you're at that point where you feel like you're in the midst of hell and you can't get out, and there you look all around you and there's fire all around you, but all you need to do is look up, and there is God Almighty standing there, Jesus with his hand out, ready for you to grab it and bring you out of that fire. And when he does, he's going to do miraculous things in your life, and he's going to change your life. And understand, you're not going to have, life was not meant to be perfect and not no problems. Jesus said, in this life you will have great trials and tribulations that will come up, but do not fear, for I have overcome the world. Do not worry, because God has it all under control. And in the end, the last word in the Bible says amen. When God says, because when God says something, it's going to happen. And we just have to hold on till that day and be able to overcome our demons and to fight our demons every day, and know that everybody has demons of some sort, some just more stronger than others, and just go through that and be able to be lifted up by that, and not to look back. A lot of people say, well, forget your past. No, I say don't forget your past. Look back on your past. See where you've come from and where you're at now. Because our past can be an encouragement to us to keep going, knowing that we will never be back to our old self. And our old self may come stepping up to us, but we'll say, no, you're not doing this. And you can say, so long, self, and keep going forward. So that's our encouragement today, folks. I hope it encouraged you. And if you were lifted up by this message, please comment below and just, I would like to hear some feedback, just things that you've overcome in your life and where God's brought you. And together we can work to share our stories of where we were and where God brought us out of, and be an encouragement and bring hope in a crazy world that we live in. So thank you for tuning in today to Edsinsight. I'm your host, Eddie Vogel. God bless you, and have a very blessed week.